Oh. Wow, look how far that's up. 615 to 765.
That's okay. You don't have to charge.
So many damn stress. It's like everything's up. Yeah. Well, I talked to Gene, and Gene said the turn count is just up ridiculously. Well, from 5.6 to 6.2 billion for all.
Well, are we still number two? Are we still number two?
I don't. Well, Fresno's in that, yeah, but we went from 5.6 to 6.2 billion. That's significant.
That's the all-time high.
That's a significant. Okay, yeah. No, it's all been working, so it's been. Okay, good deal.
Yeah, you look pretty good.
Actually, okay. I called you about the.
Isn't that amazing? Look at set 93.
I don't know my username or my password is any of that.
Basically.
What's that? No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, we're-
so I had no access to it. I just
I assume they're
read
gonna be
my
okay.
agenda online. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this morning's Board of Supervisors meeting. This is the July 23rd regularly scheduled board meeting, and at this time we will convene and we will have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. We will be led this morning by Supervisor Ishida.
Salute. I
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, we're going to take up the first item on our agenda today, and this is always an exciting item for the Tulare County Board of Supervisors, and obviously in the Central Valley, where ag is literally our bread and butter. Item number one is a presentation given by the Ag Commissioner Sealer regarding the 2012 Tulare County agricultural crop.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Marilyn Kenosha, Tulare County Ag Commissioner and Sealer. I'm proud to announce the 2012 Tulare County Agricultural Crop and Livestock Report. This is the first year we put food art on the front cover. It's created by someone named Michael Galliolo. He's a friend of one of our staff, and he's in culinary school. So we used his talents to put something neat on the front cover. We've got 9 groupings for our county crop report, and you can see that all but one had a gain in value. As you can guess, livestock and poultry products includes milk and milk products, so the majority of that. So we have just under 12% loss in that category, but the rest had pretty significant increases in value. We're not known for our seed crops, but you see 76% increase. That's because we had 1,000 extra acres of seed cotton, and the price of seed cotton was pretty high this year. The value of milk was off by $242 million. So you can imagine, since livestock products are such a significant portion of our county, that does affect employment. But this is just a pie chart of the previous slide to show you that our fruits and nuts are our largest category when you combine all of them together. In 2011, we had over $2 billion worth of milk and milk products, our number one commodity. This is a chart of the top 5 commodities. So with the decrease in milk production, our value was $1.8 billion. The second, third, fourth, and fifth categories remained relatively constant, but the order changes. This year, grapes had a phenomenal year. They were $330 million of an increase over last year's value. So that's not quite double, but it's very significant. Grapes are normally in the third or fourth spot. That category includes raisins, juice, and table grapes. We're the number 2 table grape producers in the state. Navel and Valencia oranges, cattle and calves, and corn all had a highest ever reported value. And in fact, if you look on page 10 of our crop report, 21 of our $1 million crops had highest ever value ever reported in the county. And so this is our figure for 2012. It's the second year in a row that we've had the highest gross value ever reported by our Tulare County ag industry at $6,210,693,000. It's 10% higher of a value than last year. And it's nice to see that the first time I came to present a crop report for 2009, I had nothing but doom and gloom because of the economy, but we're steadily rising from there. So right now we stand at number 2 in the state as far as overall value. Fresno County released their crop report a few weeks ago, and they were at $6.58 billion. So we're $370 million under their figure. And Kern County has not put their crop report on their board's agenda yet, so we don't know where they stand. They're always a strong third, but for right now, we're number 2 county. I thought I'd put our nut acreage. I didn't include pistachios because it would be a constant line across the bottom of this chart. But walnuts in green has remained pretty constant the last 9 years. But almond and pistachio acreage has caught up and exceeded the walnut acreage. So they're very successful crops. And this year we had 2,000 additional acreage counted for production for almonds. That's pretty significant. The last couple of years I've told you about pomegranates and blueberries increasing in production, but we've noticed that the pomegranates had a fantastic year as far as yield, but the prices were down. So we don't know whether that's attributed to, we're going to level out in the amount of pomegranates we can sustain. But there were a few growers that had trouble selling their crop. So we don't know what the cause of that is, and I suspect that blueberries will maintain and not increase much as far as acreage goes because they're really labor-intensive crop, and some of our growers have had a significant problem with finding labor, no matter what the commodity is that's being harvested. The one thing I love to brag about for our producers is our ability to export their products. We are the leading exporter of goods in the entire state. And this year, the most documented loads we've ever had. We had 48,392 export loads that went to 84 different countries. So over 30 million cartons of fruit and vegetables and nuts. 15.5 million of those cartons was Navel and Valencia oranges. And table grapes was over 7 million cartons. So those two are very significant crops for us. And I really want to thank the producers that put together the voluntary spread that we have out in front of you. It's a really good showcase. And Raphael, thank you for lining that all up yesterday. He was a very busy man. And I'd like to thank Leah, Dennis, and Jackie for putting together a crop report. And Art and his staff at the print shop that did a wonderful job. Art thinks this is the best crop report that we've done so far. So I did learn one thing, that if you're carving the county seal in a block of cheese, you have to put it in the refrigerator quite often. It's like a process. So if you have any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments, board members?
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's always fascinating to me, insight into agriculture, to get this report and see the trends. And I remember, thinking oranges and navel, oranges and citrus had a very strong position at number 2, and to see grapes pass them up was interesting. But I guess the other comment I was going to make is that, we have lots of variables, obviously, in agriculture, and one right now we're looking at is water, and as we look at a second drought type of year, I was talking to some folks this morning about the dropping of the water table, wells going out of production and so forth. If we can deal with that, if we have a good wet winter next year, we've got plenty of water. I'm just going to say that I think as good as this report is, as good as the income or the gross revenues is, I do think we are going to see even higher revenues in the future as I look at the area where I live, of more and more older acreages of vines and trees coming out, new plantings going in. I think our production is only going to climb. And it's remarkable to me to see the resourcefulness of agriculture, and with all of the burdens that are placed upon them, regulatorily, tax-wise, labor, everything they have, to continue to produce more and more on this acreage. It's just a remarkable thing to observe. And you go back and look at where we were in 1993. That wasn't that long ago. We're 3 times that amount now. It's just an amazing accomplishment. So my hat's off to the agricultural industry, and I just pray they can continue to prosper.
All right, any other comments from other board members?
No, I just noticed, Mr. Chairman, I noticed the manure drop.
It did. I wasn't going to mention that, but it's sad.
The number of head of cows dropped.
Could be
That's
the
why.
fact that they're not using as many commodities, so.
There's fewer cows, so there's less manure.
Well, great job, Marilyn. Go ahead.
Give us a quick update also. I know we've received things in our mail about the citrus psyllid. Can you give us a quick update on where we're at with that?
Sure. I received the proclamation of an emergency from the Secretary of CDFA yesterday, and there's a lot of survey work that's being done in Porterville area and then around the 3 latest find sites. So we have a map of a 5-mile radius quarantine that would be put in place. There's a few steps that have to happen before it's an official quarantine, but there's a lot of background work that's being done. And I did hear from the CDFA detection supervisor that they have had fantastic support from the community of Porterville. And, sure, check my backyard. They're in there looking for psyllids or any signs of nymphs or eggs. So we're continuing our trapping, which are urban and rural residential traps, and then CDFA handles the commercial citrus trapping for Asian citrus psyllid. These latest finds were also found on glassy wing sharpshooter traps, so all of the thousands of traps that are out in the state of California are checked a second additional time for psyllids. So it's kind of a nice partnership that we can piggyback off of, because control in this case is the key. There's only been one HLB positive tree in the entire state, and that was yanked out. So the state and the county that are involved in this problem are very proactive, as well as the industry, citrus industry.
Right. Nice report, Marilyn, and thank you for the update. And it's great to see that agriculture is still doing well, like Supervisor Worthley mentioned, with all the regulatory environment that's agriculture deals with. It's great to see them doing as well as they're doing. I do have to say that 1993 or third grade for me seems like it was a long time ago. So, it really is a while back, Supervisor, but great job, and I look forward to what 2013 has to bring for us, and hopefully it's got lots of water as well.
I hope so, too.
Thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate it. All right, at this time, we are going to move on now to our next item, and that is item number 2, and that's public comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public to comment on any item not appearing on today's agenda. Public comment can and will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak under public comment this morning? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Chairman Vanderpool, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Rousseau and Ms. Belslang. Good to see you all. I'm Rita Woodard, and I am the Registrar of Voters for Tulare County. Today we are having a small election. And I just would like to remind those voters out there that are eligible to vote in this election to please go vote. It is important. Every little vote counts. Most important. We've had a lot of elections that have been ties in our county when small districts are there. And when you have a tie, you got to have a runoff, and it's expensive. So every vote does count. In this election, it is a special election because there's a vacancy in the state senate, and the lines are very squiggly. The map is on our internet page, and people are very confused about it. So if you are not sure, please go to our website and look up your address, and there's a lookup that will tell you the districts that you are in for your address. Or you can go to any poll site and they will tell you if you are in that district or not, or to the election office across from Mooney Boulevard in Government Plaza. They will tell you if you're in there or not, or give them a call. It's like most of Lindsay is in the area, but Strathmore is not. And Plainview is, but like the cities of Porterville and the cities of Visalia and Tulare are not. So it can be very confusing, and your neighbor may say, I voted, did you? And you're across the street, and you are not in the district. So it's very, very confusing for people, and we want to help them as much as we can to make sure that everyone eligible to vote can vote. So I just wanted to get up here and remind everybody again, like I usually do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, board members? I see Supervisor Wardley's already voted, so he must be in the district. Or did you just go get a sticker?
No.
Gave me a whole bunch of them, but actually I voted a couple weeks ago. Absentee ballots.
Okay,
Yes,
good job.
he is in the district.
Thank you, Rita. We appreciate
Thank
the
you.
announcement during public comment. Is there anyone else here this morning wishing to speak under public comment? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public comment period, and I will bring it to Board of Supervisors for Board of Supervisors matters. Today we're going to start with Supervisor Ishida.
Next week, I will not be at the meeting. I have a scientific mission I'm on in Golden Trout Wilderness. I'll be counting yellow-legged frogs.
And that's it? Okay, that's it? All right, I thought that was just a joke to start it off. Go ahead. Next, we're going to have Supervisor Cox.
Okay, a couple things. Last week, I had a CWMA meeting, the Consolidated Waste Management Authority meeting. Surprising, there's still some agencies and still some electeds that don't quite understand how the diversion rates are being calculated and how they're being figured. You know, if you look at our diversion rate, they were at 70%. We're not actually taking 70% out of our waste stream and recycling it. It's that's based off of a number that was used as a baseline years ago, and so we're actually pulling about a half of that much out of our waste stream. So it's interesting as we start talking solid waste and looking at recycling. It's not really a pound in and 3/4 of a pound out is what we're recycling now. It's a lot different. So we're working on that, trying to get all the agencies on board and understand how the recycling really works. Also on Friday we had the audit committee, our first meeting there. That committee will still be working on defining its duties over the next couple of months as we meet. And it was a very productive meeting as we started going into some actual audits that were held. And so the next 2 months, there will be some training held for that audit committee as well as that committee defining its purpose. Last, I've got a statement here I would like to read. This is in regards to the events, some other events of last week. On behalf of my family, I would like to thank the community for its outpouring of support. As you know, my daughter was arrested last week on several charges, including possession of drugs. Our family has known about and tried to assist her with her drug addiction problem for the last 3 years to no avail. It's been really heartening this last week, and also I've been contacted by several citizens throughout Tulare County over the last few days with their own stories of struggles they have had with family members and drug addiction. These drugs that are available in our society now seem to know no rules. There are few barriers between supply and demand, and there are no longer lower and upper class divisions which protect our youth from the temptation of experimenting with these drugs. The drugs that are available in the streets today are more addictive than ever before. Our public safety officers are stretched at times to their limit, but do their best to protect the citizens of this community. I would like to thank the Visalia Police Department for the professional manner in which they handled my daughter in this case. And I have not, like the folks present and the public know, I have not asked for any special treatment from any parties involved and will not. My stance on crime and punishment has not changed with this event. So again, I'd like to thank those that have supported my family in this time, and it's amazing the number of families that actually have to go through this all the time, and I wasn't aware, as people would tell me. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Worthley.
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisor Cox. I know all of us on the board, our sympathies and empathy is with you, because it's the greatest fear of every parent to have to deal with those kinds of issues. I was on a similar type of research study last week in San Luis Obispo County for a week at Cayucas, and having a enjoyable vacation time with my family. The one thing I did want to say was yesterday we had our TCAG meeting and had our final report on our revenue for last year, and we were up, I hope I'm getting this right, 8%, I believe it was our increase this year over last year. Last year was an increase over the previous year. So our revenue streams are coming up very well, and when you look at how we have been able to leverage those Measure R dollars with federal and state dollars, and also the lower cost of contracting because of the bad economy, we are really doing quite well with Measure R and our transportation. We are way ahead of what we thought we would be at this point, and it's a great success for Tulare County. And again, our hat goes off to the voters of Tulare County who saw the wisdom of voting a 30-year measure to improve our transportation system, and they are now seeing the benefits of that. So that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Ennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow, we'll be having a Indian Gaming Local Benefit Committee meeting here at 10 o'clock to go over a few items and clean up for the year. The Friday, we'll have the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority, which we are part of with Fresno County, and that meeting will be Friday at 9 o'clock in Fresno. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. The one thing I wanted to go over in Board of Supervisors matters today is to mention the Liberty School ribbon cutting event. That is a new elementary school that has been constructed within District 2 between Tulare and Visalia. They will be having a ribbon cutting on Monday, the 29th of July at 5 p.m. With keynote speaker and graduate Devin Nunes being there. So look forward to that event. Now we've got a little bit of time before our first timed item this morning. The board will take up the consent calendar very quickly. Board, are there any items you wish to have pulled from the consent calendar for separate consideration? Supervisor
So
Cox?
we need to pull item number 10 in regards to the first 5. I'll need to recuse myself from that item.
Okay.
Motion to approve the balance of consent calendar, Mr. Chairman.
Let me make sure that there's no one in the public that wishes to speak to any consent calendar item today. Okay, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion from Supervisor Worthley and a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Supervisor Cox will be recusing himself, and we will take up item number 10.
Move approval for item 10.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Ishida. Second. A second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes 3, because Mike voted twice, so his vote doesn't count. Which is it, Mike? Okay, all right, there we go. Motion passes 4-0 with Supervisor Cox recusing himself. We will now, we've completed the consent calendar. We will now take up our first untimed item. We will take up actually item number 23 because that has to be heard before item number 4. Mr. Fussell, I believe that's you.
Caught me a little bit off guard this morning, Chairman. Britt Fussell,
Not trying to mess with you.
Assistant Director for Public Works with the Resource Management Agency. My mouse. There we go. Good morning, Board. Again, Britt Fussell, Assistant Director for Public Works with the Tulare County Resource Management Agency. And the item before you this morning is the Proposition 218 report for the utility rate hearing that we had 2 weeks ago in this chambers. Public hearing was held on July 9th, and as part of that hearing, the Board received written protest letters from the El Rancho Sewer, Delph Colony Sewer, Tonyville Sewer, Tuleville Sewer, Yedem Sewer, Wells Track Sewer, and the Wells Track Water Systems. Proposition 218, which is the Right to Vote on Taxes Act, was approved by the electorate back in November of 1996, and it added Article 13C and D to the California Constitution. This is then further implemented by sections in the Government Code. The pertinent section for the presentation this morning is Government Code Section 53755B, which states one written protest per parcel filed by an owner or tenant of the parcel shall be counted in calculating a majority protest to a proposed new or increased fee or charge subject to the requirements of Section 6 of Article 13D of the California Constitution. We define an affected parcel to include a parcel that's currently receiving service, any parcel that has a vacant status charge, or any parcel that's currently has a standby charge. So we do have a provision in our ordinance that if a property is going to be vacant for a year or longer, the owner can come in and request that the rate be reduced down to our vacancy charge, which is then is the amount that's invoiced. And then once the property is reoccupied, then we take that back up to the whatever their current rate is. In addition, in some of the zones of benefit, there were property owners who don't have a structure on the property but participate in the standby charge. And basically what the vacancy charge and the standby charge are doing is covering the debt service that is trying to cover the debt service that are on these systems, in that they're not actually receiving service, so there's no treatment costs associated with those two statuses. What it does not include is if there are multiple connection or bills per parcel. So in other words, if you have a parcel that has a duplex on it or two houses on it, and each unit is receiving a separate bill, then only one bill counts towards the Prop 218 analysis. In addition, we are not counting any properties in the affected parcel status that are not receiving any kind of billing from the county for the affected zone of benefit. So before you now is a table for the 7 zones of benefit that we received the protest letters on, and you can see which identifies the number of affected parcels, then a calculation to determine what the threshold would be for a valid protest, the number of actual protest letters received, staff's analysis to determine the number of valid protest letters, and then whether or not that particular zone of benefit, the threshold for a valid protest was met. And as you can see, for an example, in the El Rancho sewer system, there's 26 affected parcels, so the threshold for a valid protest would be 14. On July 9th, we received 16 letters of protest. However, 2 of those were duplicates or did not count, and so the valid protest letters was 14. So in that particular case, the protest was met. The most significant one is Yedem Sewer. You see down at the bottom we have 34 affected parcels, so the valid threshold for a valid protest is 18. We received protest letters representing 25 charges, if you will. However, only 14 of those were counted as being valid because in the Yedem zone of benefit there are a couple parcels that have multiple units. I believe there are 2 parcels that have 7 units on it each, and so there might have been received 7 protest letters from each of the units on that parcel. However, the parcel only gets 1 vote, so 6 of those do not count. In this particular case, the number of valid protest letters was 14, less than 18 for a valid protest, so that one protest did not pass. So you can see out of the 7, 2 of them, Delft Colony Sewer and Yedem Sewer, did not have a sufficient number of protest letters for a valid protest. So at the end of the day, the rates must stay the same as what was adopted in the previous fiscal year. That's actually incorrect. That should say 2013 and not 2012. And that would be El Rancho, Tonyville, Tuleyville, Wells Track Sewer, Wells Track Water. However, the board may increase the rates for Delft Colony Sewer and Yedem Sewer. And the fiscal impact from this change, on July 9th, I presented that if we were to raise the rates as originally identified by staff in all of the zones of benefit that were affected, the need from the revolving fund for fiscal year 2014 would be about $86,000. However, as a result of the protests that were valid, that will now increase to $105,000. Again, that's based on budgeted numbers and revenue, and maybe less or more depending upon whether or not there are some expenses that we can avoid or if there's some extra expenses that occur as a result of problems we encounter in the zones of benefit. So with that, I would respond to any questions that the board may have, and there is a resolution in your packet that implements the rates as I've identified.
Any questions or comments by board members?
Sharon, I'm going to comment now, as it will affect a public item coming up later on. I know all the board up here struggles with this process. This is not a situation where the county in any way is trying to line its pockets. It's purely an effort by us to break even on providing these services. And that's the whole basis of why we charge fees. Fees are supposed to be levied for providing of services which are above and beyond the general public that we provide general services like law enforcement, district attorney, and so forth. It's very frustrating in many ways. One is that the high cost that these folks are enduring, but secondarily, we are falling further and further behind, and so we borrow from the general fund, so the rest of the county then subsidizes these rates even as high as they are. I'm struggling with Yedem in particular because the rates are extremely high. And as we look at percentage increases, then as you look at a small increase percentage-wise, it has the greatest impact on a dollar-wise, and it goes from $92.50 to $97.25. It's in a stratosphere all of its own in terms of how high it is. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Britt provided those last meeting, 2 weeks ago. It is very close to breaking even at these numbers, so they have very high rates, but they are one of the closer ones to breaking even, as opposed to many of these other ones who are many, many dollars short of breaking even. So I will not support a rate increase for Yedem at this time, based upon the actions taken by the other jurisdictions and based upon the very singular issues that have around this town, this community of Yedem.
Okay. Any other comments by other board members? And there is a public hearing in a little bit that will deal specifically with the action on this item, but this was just a request to receive the report. If there are no further comments from board members, are there any comments from members of the public at this time specifically about this? We do have a public hearing, like I said, but you're welcome to comment right now if you would like. And public comments can and will be limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Irma Medellin. I'm on 1043 Sillingen Drive in Lindsay, California. So I'm a director of El Quinto Sol de America, and I work as community organizer too. And I work on all these communities and collecting signatures to present you about this increase. But I believe and I know we don't want to hurt anybody, because I know this costs money for you, but it costs money for the community too. But we want help as community, working together with you to find a solution, because I know the signatures or posts every year to this increase is not a solution. But we are here and we'll continue to work in these communities, and we want to help work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments this morning about this item? Okay, seeing none, that concludes item number 23. We will now move on to our public hearings scheduled for 9:30.
Excuse me, Chair, you need a vote on this?
We do have to vote? Okay,
Yes.
I thought it was just a request to receive a report. All right.
No, you're actually voting to implement the
Implement the
fees,
increases, okay.
the fee resolution, yes.
All right, sounds good. The chair will entertain a motion at this time to increase the
So
fees.
moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
I have a question.
Supervisor?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. The motion is to implement the fee increases? I thought we have a public hearing on the fee increases. This is the report on it, is it not?
What you're actually doing, Board, is at the last meeting, you voted to implement the fee increases for which there was no protest letters received.
Oh.
So at this meeting, we've analyzed the protests and determined those zones of benefits for which the fees cannot be increased, and there's 2 of those that then can be increased based upon failing the written protest. So the board needs to act to adopt that resolution, which then basically says 5 of the fees will stay the same as the previous year, 2 of them would be increased. Notwithstanding your comments regarding Yedem, Supervisor Whitley.
Okay, so we have a motion from Supervisor Worthley. I'm sorry, from Supervisor Cox.
Second.
I have a second from Supervisor Ishida. Please vote. Motion passes 4-1. Ishida, Vanderpool, Cox, and Ennis, yes, and Supervisor Worthley, no. Item has concluded. We will now move on to our 9:30 timed items for this morning's meeting. First item we will take up is item number 4. That is a public hearing. It's a request from the Resource Management Agency to consider and approve the placement of County Service Area number 1 and County Service Area number 2, delinquent sewer and water service fees, delinquent penalties, and auditors' collection charges on the 2013-2014 roll. Britt?
Thank you, Board. again, Brett Fussell, Assistant Director for Public Works of the Resource Management Agency, and this is an item that we bring to you annually at the end of the fiscal year, where we identify that there were some property owners who did not pay their sewer or water charges either partially or wholly throughout the fiscal year. And under state law and local ordinance, the board is allowed to roll those uncollected charges to the property tax roll. So this morning is a public hearing to place the delinquent water and service charges on the 2014 tax roll for all of the county Service Area 1 and 2 zones of benefit. This hearing was set on June 25th of this year and affects the Delph Colony Sewer, Delph Colony Water, Seville Sewer, Tonyville Sewer, Tullyville Sewer, Travers Sewer, Wells Track Water, and Wells Track Sewer zones of benefit. The amount rolled includes the auditor's charges, which is $200 per zone of benefit. In addition, there is a $3 per assessor number charge that goes onto the roll and a 10% penalty. Delph Colony Sewer and Water, which is Exhibits A and B in your packet, and you do have some revised exhibits before you this morning. The exhibits that were in your packet when it was distributed were based upon our initial setting the public hearing and mailing, and if you compare the exhibits you have this morning with those that we submitted to you at the time the packet was prepared, you will see in some cases there's some significant differences. What we allow property owners to do is to come in and bring their bills current up to the Friday before this hearing in order to then not have to roll that. And I think you'll notice in some of those there's been a significant number of people that did come in and pay. As a result, for Delph Colony Sewer and Water, the number of properties that you'll be rolling is 7. The total amount to roll is $3,275, and there were 2 property owners left on the list who made no payment all year. At the request of the board, I've tried to provide a little bit of a history regarding the delinquency sewer charges, and you can see for Delph Colony Sewer and Water, the total amount delinquent, not including what's before you today, is a little over $3,900. There's a total of 5 delinquent accounts, which making the percentage of delinquency about 6%, and you can see the breakdown of the properties that are delinquent, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, et cetera, through 5 years. So I think if you look at Delph Colony as an example, you can see that we're rolling 7 properties today. And originally we came before you with 37. So 30 property owners came in and brought their bill current as a result of our notification process. And as you can see that we are rolling 7, and we have 5 people in these 2 zones of benefit that are pretty chronic, if you will, in not paying their property taxes or paying their delinquent charges through that process. In the case of Seville Sewer, the number that you're rolling this morning is 39, to the tune of about $19,000. There was 26 properties that had no payment all year, and the history of the delinquency is $23,600 currently delinquent, again, not including the $19,000, a total of 18 accounts, 16% of the number of affected parcels in this zone of benefit, and then you can see the percentage of the delinquency broken down by year. What's interesting on this chart is that there's 1 property that's now delinquent for 6 years, which means that property will either come in and become current or will begin to show up in the tax sale process. Tonyville, the number rolled this morning would be 13 for a total of about $11,000. There are 9 with no payment at all this year. The history on the delinquency is about $16,000 for a total of 10 delinquent accounts, or about 18%. Again, the breakdown of the delinquent accounts by number of years delinquent. Tullyville Sewer, the number rolled is going to be 10. The amount rolled is about $4,400. There was 5 that made no payment all year. On the history of the delinquency, the total amount delinquent in this zone of benefit is a little over $3,700, covering 7 accounts, or 9% of the zone of benefit. And again, you can see the breakdown by year. Traverse Sewer, the number to roll this year is 28 for about $10,000. The number that made no payment at all this year is 15. And the history of delinquency is about $8,000 delinquent for 13 accounts, or about 7% of that particular zone of benefit. Wells Track Sewer and Water, the number that will be rolling this year are 6 parcels. The total roll jointly for both the water and the sewer zones of benefit is a little over $4,000. There were 3 that did not pay at all last year, and the history you can see is $2,000 delinquent. Total of 2 accounts making up that $2,000, or about 3% of those 2 zones of benefit. El Rancho Sewer. El Rancho is a little unique in that we do not bill them on a monthly basis out of the RMA. This one is actually rolled to the property taxes. It's how the first zone of benefit was set up back in the day when it was created. And you can see that the amount, so there's really, you're not rolling anything to El Rancho today because it's already on the tax roll. But you can see from this slide that there is about $7,400 in delinquent sewer charges, covering 3 accounts, 11% of that particular zone of benefit, and then you can see the breakdown by years. Yedeman Sewer and Water, this is one where I think if you look in your packet from the previous exhibit, there were some outstanding delinquent accounts, but they all came in and paid up, so there's nothing to roll to Yedem this year. And this is a zone of benefit, both the sewer and water, where there is no history of delinquent accounts. And with that, I would respond to any board's questions and then request that you hold a public hearing and then adopt the resolution with the revised exhibits provided to the board this morning.
Any questions from board members? Supervisor Cox?
Brett, did you add those up for me? As you were going through them, I didn't get to write them all down.
The total amount?
Well, it's because these delinquencies are not included in your numbers for the services. I mean, so if there's $20,000 that are being rolled over to the rolls, we assumed in our operations that those $20,000 would be paid. So the $20,000 in addition to whatever the shortfall is what we're going to be kicking in and what we have kicked in from our one-way revolving loan fund. So, I mean, I'm wondering if you added up all those prior delinquencies.
Well, the prior delinquencies total $64,490, not including what is being rolled this morning. So you take the $64,000 outstanding and add, and I apologize, I did not add those numbers up.
That's fine. I'm wondering when we're going to consider this to be real money and a real investment. A real subsidy.
One thing I would like to comment on is that I think it was Rita was still here; she could respond to this. But I think up to about 3 years ago, the teeter plan was in effect, and the zones of benefit participated in the teeter plan. In that, whenever we rolled these charges, even if they weren't paid, the zones of benefits received their revenue. But as a result of some issues associated with the general fund, et cetera, relative to the teeter plan was undone, so now the zones of benefit are being treated like any other taxing entity. It rolls to the property taxes, and the zones of benefit receive their money when and if the taxes are.
So that's a benefit then back to
Supervisor Ennis?
So, Brett, if these go 7 years with no payment, then they go for the tax sale?
I believe that's 5 years.
5 years? Okay.
That's why I noted on a couple of them when I was putting that report together that they're showing up at 6 years. So we need to watch those next year to see what happens to them.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, this is a public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing and allow for public comment. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this item? Okay. Wait, we do have one person come and speak. You can use either microphone. They both work.
Morning.
Please state your name and address.
Florentino Hernandez Jr., nice to Columbus. I'm here in Visalia. And I don't see why you all are charging for the water that's contaminated. That's the whole issue on this too. Phthalates and selenium, it's all contaminated, the water in a lot of these communities. And you all had 15 communities at one time. You guys wanted them to just disintegrate, vanish. And it seems like you're still doing it. And it's like the Constitution says, preemptive, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And if you got the water polluted, air polluted, the ground polluted, federal government, state government, local government is failing on us, on the people. Peace. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments this morning under public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back to the board for action. Any other comments or questions? All right, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Cox. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Britt.
Thank you, Board. And I would like to respond to the gentleman's comment is that the water being provided by the three water systems, the fourth water system, if you will, Seville Water Company, meets minimum water quality standards. We do not have any outstanding issues that I'm aware of relative to the quality of the water.
Okay. Thank you. We will now move on to item number 5 on today's agenda. It's also a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to consider and approve the placement of the Seville Water Company delinquent water service fees, delinquent penalties, and auditors' collection charges on the 2013-2014 tax roll. Britt.
Yes, the item before you this morning relates, Britt Fussell, Assistant Director, Public Works with the Resource Management Agency. The item before you this morning is with the Seville Water Company. The Seville Water Company is treated differently. It's not in our zone of benefit because the county is operating it under receivership. And so this morning is the public hearing to place the delinquent water service charges on the 2014 tax roll. Again, this public hearing was set on June 25th. And as noted before, in the zones of benefit, there are charges that are imposed as a result of placing this on the tax roll, a $200 per the zone, or in this case the water company, plus a $3 per assessor parcel number and a 10% penalty. Currently in the Seville Water Company, there are 23 parcels that are being rolled for an amount of $14,000. The number of no payment all year were 13. The total amount that's currently delinquent is $11,000 for a total of 6 accounts, or 8% of the number of services that we're servicing. And in this particular case, all 6 of those are 2 years in their delinquency. And with that, staff would respond to any questions that the board may have, and then would ask that you hold a public hearing regarding rolling the Seville Water Company delinquent charges to the tax roll.
Any questions or comments by board members? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask for any public comments about this item. Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back to the board for action on this item.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Supervisor Worthley, a second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Britt. Appreciate it.
One more.
Yep. We will now adjourn as the Tulare County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Terabella Sewer Maintenance District. Take up item number 6, which is a public hearing, a request from the Resource Management Agency to consider and approve the placement of Terabella Sewer Maintenance District's delinquent sewer service charges, delinquent penalties, and auditors' collection charges on the 2013-2014 tax roll.
Britt Fussell, Assistant Director for Public Works with the Resource Management Agency, and as the chairman indicated, this is the public hearing to roll the delinquent service charges for the Terabella Sewer Maintenance District. Again, put these onto the 2014 tax roll, and the public hearing was set on June 25th. And this has similar charges as the other 2 hearings that you just held. $200 per district for the auditor's charges, as well as $3 per affected parcel number, and then there's a 10% penalty imposed. Currently this morning, there's a revised exhibit before you where we're rolling 37 parcels, and if you look at the information that was provided with your packet, at the time it was submitted, there was a total of 106. So as you can see, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of people come in and bring their accounts current. There were 24 with no payment at all last year. The outstanding delinquency is a little over $31,000 for a total of 15 accounts, which is 5% of those accounts serviced within the sewer maintenance district. And you can see the history or the years of delinquency broken down by year 1 through year 5. And with that, I would respond to any questions that the board may have, and then ask that you hold a public hearing and adopt the resolution placing these on the property tax roll with the revised exhibit.
All right, board, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there is anyone here to speak to this item. Here we do have one. Please state your name and the record and your name and address for the record.
Florentino Hernandez Jr., 321 West Sweet Street, Visalia, California, 93291, Knights of Columbus. And I don't see why you can't try bioremediation for the sewer problems. It's, it's natural. It's inexpensive, really, compared to the other way y'all doing it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any other comments this morning? Gene has a comment.
Yeah, I just want to comment two things. One is the 5% delinquency rate is consistent with the overall roll. It's approximately, and we have about a 95% collection rate. So 5% is ballparkish for all the properties in the county. And I just wanted to comment, I wish I'd have said something earlier, but when Mr. Fussell mentioned that one zone of benefit that was set up to be billed on the tax rolls to begin with, it was interesting how low the delinquency rate was. It was virtually non-existent. So anyway, just want to make those two comments.
Okay. Any other go ahead, Supervisor Cox.
Brent, we've talked in the past, if you live in a city and you don't pay your water bill for 2 months, they show up with a wrench and shut your water off. Is it pretty much county-wide that we have no shut-off valves anywhere?
No, excuse me. We have 3 water systems that we operate, actually 4 counting the Seville receivership, and the 3 of them that the county's been in business for a long time, built the systems, actually have shut-off valves, and we do use shutting off the water as a method to encourage payment. Sometimes it works well, and sometimes it doesn't.
Thank you.
All right, I will close the public hearing at this time if there are no further comments. You already had your chance, right? I appreciate your comment. Anyone else wishing to, any of the board members wish to ask any questions or make any comments? All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
We have a motion by Supervisor Ennis.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Worthley. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We will now adjourn as the Terra Bella Sewer Maintenance District and reconvene as the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. We will now take up item number 7, which is a public hearing. A request from the Solid Waste Department to consider applications for refuse hauling licenses for Area D and Area E from Mid-Valley Disposal. Denise.
Good morning, Board. Denise Akins, Tulare County Administrative Office. The matter before you today is in regard to refuse hauling licenses for Areas D and E. This particular site isn't part of your packet, but I gave you a map just so you can see the different hauling areas in Tulare County. This matter came about in late June. We were met with representatives from Waste Connections Incorporated and Mid-Valley Disposal notifying the county of Waste Connections' intent to sell to Mid-Valley. On June 24th, staff received a letter from Mid-Valley Disposal and Waste Connections requesting that licenses be transferred to Mid-Valley Disposal as part of a sale. And on June 26th, we received the application from Mid-Valley Disposal for Areas D and Area E. So the Tulare County Ordinance Code allows written authority from the licensee with approval from the RMA director to allow someone other than the licensee to collect refuse within the licensed area. It does not provide for the transfer of a license as part of a sale, but it does not prohibit such a transfer either. And the Ordinance Code details how a license is issued. This is an area of the Ordinance Code that needs to be updated along with many, many other things. So basically, it requires an application, a public hearing, and board action. So the history of Area D, which is known as Three Rivers Disposal, it's the area around Three Rivers. From 1975 to 2001, the license was issued to Three Rivers Disposal. In 2001, the license was transferred. It was reissued to Waste Connections, doing business as Three Rivers Disposal. This was due to a sale of business from Three Rivers to Waste Connections Incorporated. Waste Connections acquired the personnel, equipment, and the facilities associated with the business, and they continue to do business as Three Rivers Disposal. Area E was originally licensed to Allied Disposal from 1975 to 1999. In 99, the license was issued to Waste Connections, Inc., doing business as Allied Disposal. This was also due to the sale of the business. And again, Waste Connections, Inc. Acquired personnel, equipment, and facilities associated with the business. There have been other areas that have been sold. From what we can gather, Area C was licensed to Bever's Disposal from 1975 to 2000. It was then sold to USA Waste. USA Waste is a division of Waste Management. They did, at that time, the board allowed USA Waste to do business as Bever's and then for 12 months, and then they actually changed to USA Waste. Area I in 91 was merged with Area G. Area H, similar situation, 1975 to 90, 91-ish, it was licensed to Sunset. They merged with Western Waste. At some point, Sunset exited, and it was just Western Waste, and then it was sold to USA Waste in 1998, and again, that's a part of Waste Management. So in conclusion, staff is requesting to allow the issuance of the licenses for Area D and E to Mid-Valley Disposal. Mid-Valley would continue to do business as Allied Disposal and Three Rivers Disposal in their respective areas. It allows Waste Connections, Inc. to liquidate their assets in Tulare County. A 5-year notice would be issued immediately to Mid-Valley Disposal for Areas D and E, and it's consistent with past action by the board. With that, it does require a public hearing, and I'm available to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
One clarification. Since your board has sent notices of termination to all of the haulers, the terms of their licenses are now roughly 4 years and 10 months, and your board can issue a license in the same term so that everybody's on the same schedule.
Okay. Any questions from board members? I just have one question that I'll ask Denise and council. I might have you chime in as well. So I know you were making a recommendation, but what are the options that are available to the board? Because this is this is a unique situation considering we're making so many changes within the solid waste system in Tulare County. I just want to make sure that the board is aware of the options available to them before the board takes action.
The transfer of the licenses, the sale is contingent on the transfer of the licenses.
Okay.
Waste Connections has indicated if the licenses are not approved that they would continue service those areas. I'm not sure. I would defer to council on what the other options would be.
This item is on your board's closed session agenda, and I would prefer to give your board advice regarding the legal options on or the legal issues relating to other options in closed session.
All right. Does the board want to go into closed session to hear the options, or do we want to have the public hearing first? Okay, we'll go ahead and have the public hearing first. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and ask for any members of the public who wish to comment on this item to come forward, state your name and address, and again, your time will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone here wishing to comment during the public hearing? No comments? Okay. I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back to the board. Kathleen, I do know that as one supervisor, I would like to hear the options that are available to the board.
This is listed on your board's closed session agenda as item D.
Okay. Once the board dais is secure, we will reconvene. All right, thank you. I feel safe. The board has reconvened from closed session, and the board can now entertain action on this item. Any board members wish to make any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I think that it would be appropriate to allow this, as we have done consistently in the past, allow the assignment. However, I believe it should be consistent with what the other contracts that now have been given notice of termination on the 5-year contract. So if it's 4 years and 10 months, then that should be the allowable assignment to the new buyers.
And I will make just the comment that I am aware that this is a contract, and what the license allows for is the 5-year operation or 4 years and 10-month operation that is transferable and assignable. The county has to approve that transfer. However, I have been very adamant throughout my tenure on the board about an open public process. And I do not want to continue to do things the way that we have been doing them. And so that is my principle. I have nothing against Waste Connections, nor anything against Mid-Valley. I know that they are all great companies, and we have great haulers within the county. My issue is really just one with process, but there is a difference between process and contract. And I am very acutely aware of all of these things, but I will still stand for process, and so, again, I have nothing against any of the companies. I think they're great companies, but I definitely think that we have to do something about the process, and we are in the middle of addressing that. It's unfortunate this license transfer happens now while we are in the middle of that, but we can't really control how that's going to, the timing of how this is working out. Any other comments by any other board members?
Mr. Chairman, I think we have a responsibility to carry forward with contracts that we have in place. And at the end of the period of time that we've set out, whatever, if it's 4 years or 10 months, whatever, that's the time of review, probably a year before. We've had a practice in this county for many years of transferring contracts, and I will did you make a motion, Supervisor?
Go ahead, Don made a motion, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the transfer consistent with the other haulers' dates on the contract, which would be approximately 4 years and 10 months.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Ishida, a second by Supervisor Worthley. Please vote. Motion passes 3-2. Supervisors Ishida, Worthley, and Ennis voting yes, and Supervisors Vanderpool and Cox voting no. That item does pass. Thank you for bringing up the item, Denise. Appreciate the presentation. That concludes that agenda item, and we are now going to move to our untimed portion of the meeting agenda today. We'll move on to item number 21, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to consider, modify as needed, and approve the response to the Tulare County Grand Jury 2012-2013 final report regarding the report entitled Tulare County Juvenile Detention Facility.
Good morning, Chairman Vanderpool, members of the board, Jean and Kathleen Bales-Lang. My name is Jed Chernabayev. I'm an analyst with the County Administrative Office. The 2012-13 Grand Jury final report includes a report that requests response from your board. The draft response is included with the agenda item. For all reports, respondents must address each finding stating either agreement or disagreement. The response must also address each recommendation stating it will be implemented or not. If further analysis is needed, it must be completed within 6 months. I will review the draft response for your consideration, citing the recommendation determinations. Please let me know if you have any questions or modifications to the draft. The report entitled Juvenile Detention Facility includes 2 findings and 1 recommendation. The draft response finds agreement with both of the findings, and regarding the recommendation, it has been implemented by the Probation Department. It is requested that you approve the draft response and any clerical corrections and authorize the chairman to sign the response letter. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Any questions from board members? Okay. I don't have any questions either. Any comments from members of the public? Seeing none, Chair will entertain an action.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Supervisor Cox.
Second.
A second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Supervisor Sheeta? Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
He's already off on
You're preparing for your biological expedition next week. We'll now move on to item number 22, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to approve sending a letter of position for the 2014 water bond. Denise.
Good morning again, Board. Denise Akins, County Administrative Office. Over the past couple of months, the Tulare County Water Commission has considered a letter of position for the 2014 water bond. In your packet is a draft of that letter, and I would be happy to entertain any comments, questions, clarifications.
Supervisor Sheeta, I know you do have comments.
Yes, I mentioned for discussion, we discussed the water bond in the Water Commission. And I stated at the time 2 months ago that the Board of Supervisors would be taking this matter up. And we strongly, the sentiment was we need surface water storage in this new water bond because the water bond is being cut back. So the Water Commission wanted to review this subject and present a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Last meeting at the Water Commission, the letter was submitted to be forwarded to the Board of Supervisors, which is basically the letter you see in front of you, except for the last paragraph. And the last paragraph has been changed because the Water Commission was they did not take a firm stance about water storage, surface water storage, and it left the impression that they wanted all this stuff in paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and 4, but was still supportive of water bond even though it didn't include it. So I made the change to say that without definitive surface water storage in the water bond, that we would not support the water bond. The reason I stated that is that we have the Delta Bay plan that's talking about these tunnels. Well, we've learned from experience, just because you build it, the tunnels, doesn't mean you're going to get one drop of water through that tunnel. As we found out through the current San Joaquin settlement, that there's always another issue they'll bring into the mitigation, which completely throws what you intended to do out the door. So I really think it's a waste of money to build the two tunnels without surface water storage. Because what will happen is if you bypass the delta and take the water out before the delta people will say that you're not mixing enough water, you encourage groundwater, saltwater intrusion. It doesn't make any sense to do that. If we have surface water, we can still put water through the delta and keep the saltwater intrusion at a minimum. So that's what
Supervisor, I do have a question for you. I know you serve on the San Joaquin Valley Policy Council, and you're very involved with the Delta counties as well. What are the positions of other boards and other areas even about this water bond?
Well, I hear a lot of conversations saying they're against the water bond without surface water storage, but I haven't seen anybody step up to the plate to make that statement. Now, we used to have a working committee with the San Joaquin Valley Partnership that addressed water, and since we've lost two supervisors that sat on the two co-chairmen of that water committee, we haven't had another meeting. And those meetings included the Delta County supervisors. I frankly think the partnership's afraid to bring the issue up because they're dependent upon the governor's goodwill to be funded. So there's a political ties to the action on the partnership. The San Joaquin Valley Policy Council is mainly, we really address transportation. goods movement, roads, air quality, and we really have not pushed on the water issue. You'll have other MPOs that individually will take up that issue, but Tulare County Association of Governments really hasn't stepped into that realm. We've always kind of stayed within the transportation air quality charge of what we do. We haven't gone into a lot of other things other MPOs have.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the mistake in the terminology, but I see exactly what you're saying. Any other comments from other supervisors? Supervisor Ward?
Thank you. I fully support this last paragraph being included in our letter. As I look at the proposed tunnels, it's really more about a water quality issue than it is about a water quantity issue. And you're exactly right. We need more water, not just better quality water. And when you look, one of the benefits of off-site of storage, for instance, again, historically, it's kind of interesting to know how this works. But the runoff on the Kings River and the San Joaquin River are almost identical. But we have a 1 million acre foot dam lake and Pine Flat on the Kings River, and we have a 500,000 acre foot dam on the San Joaquin River. It was known it was built in 1940 that it was undersized, but because of the Depression and because of the economy, it was built the way that it was. In fact, it's even worse than that because the bottom 250,000 acre feet of it are not even accessible because they're below the takeout points for the canals. So there is a very definite need for additional storage on the San Joaquin River. That will provide additional improved quality and, but more importantly, increased quantity, which is going to be necessary if we're going to maintain agriculture on the eastern side of the San Joaquin Valley on the Frank Kern Canal. So I believe this is a very important part of any water bond. And the other thing, historically, we've had a number of water bonds passed in this state, number of them. And every time it was, well, next time it'll be water storage, next time it'll be water storage, next time it'll be water storage. It's time to step up and do water storage. And it doesn't make sense every place to do it, but certainly on the San Joaquin River and I think the Sykes Reservoir, we know of at least 2 instances where it makes good sense to build additional storage.
I agree. I think that additional storage is absolutely critical in this bond moving forward. I think we address a lot of other issues within the water bond that's being proposed, and leaving out storage is really doing nothing in general for California's water, which desperately needs infrastructure improvement. So I'm glad to see that we're making that change to the letter, and I certainly approve it moving forward. Supervisor Rashida?
In paragraph 3, I forgot to mention there's an important issue in there that the Water Commission brought up, is wild and scenic river status of North Coast. Since we put the state legislatures put that in place, there has not been any new storage, and 1/3 of California's water flows out of that drainage area. So I thought that was interesting. They brought that issue up, and I think it's time to be reviewed. If you take the Klamath River and up in Siskiyou County and in Oregon, they're trying to take out 3 dams that was resold to the San Joaquin River settlement. I can see taking dams out that are unsafe, but replacing them. But they're taking 3 dams out, and that water will flow through the wild and scenic rivers that we will not be able to recapture that water. And the other issue is if you have surface storage, you have the ability to groundwater store, because you can catch the flood runoffs and direct that water to groundwater storage, which we desperately need in the state of California. That's all I have.
All right. Any comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Supervisor Ishida, a second by Supervisor Wardley. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Denise. We will now move on to item number 24, presentation given by the Resource Management Agency regarding the accomplishments of the planning branch during fiscal year 2012-2013. And you brought the bow tie for the presentation, Mike.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. County Administrative Officer Rousseau, and County Counsel Bales Lang. My name is Mike Spada, RMA Planning. I'm pleased to come before you today to provide a presentation concerning various matters involving the planning branch of the Resource Management Agency. In light of the fact that the agenda item that has been submitted to you, as well as the attachment, provide a fair amount of detail with regard to the information that I will be presenting, I will be very brief today. There are 4 parts to this presentation. With regard to the planning branch, I will cover accomplishments, reorganization, work plan, and most importantly, the acknowledgments of various entities and individuals, including the Board of Supervisors. Planning branch accomplishments. As you can see on the slide, there are a number of them: environmental, planning, economic development, grants and development, building and housing, medical marijuana code compliance, and geographic information systems. Before I go through them very briefly, I just wanted to say that a great deal of this work was accomplished as a result of the management system that we have carried out this year, in the sense that we have focused in 2 areas. One, how to create the public value in terms of performance, and how to improve our business process, primarily through the project management method. And let's look at the performance. With regard to environmental, the Environmental Planning Division is responsible for CEQA and NEPA reporting, environmental permitting, and as I will discuss later, environmental resource planning. But with regard to environmental accomplishments, the most important statistic that you will see in your packet is that 105 categorical exemptions were adopted, 25 negative declarations, and 3 EIRs. There were a number of important projects that were accomplished: the South County Detention Facility, the Harvest Power Digester Project, and the Thule Tribe Wastewater Treatment Plant, many solar facilities, and so forth. The point is this: although there are a number of views with regard to CEQA, its importance, and so forth, as I have mentioned time and time again, the most important financing document, whether it's a public project or a private project, is the environmental document. Because without environmental clearance, there can be no private return on investment, or there cannot be any generation of public revenue unless that project gets developed, constructed, and operated. Therefore, we have rightly focused on the front end to ensure that the attention is given to CEQA projects so that the process flows all the way to completion and then ultimate construction and operation. With regard to the planning accomplishments, there are 2 basic accomplishments here. One is long-term planning or long-range planning, and one is current planning, or known to you more commonly as project processing. With regard to long-term planning, the most important accomplishment adopted by this county through your board was a general plan update. In addition, the housing element was adopted last year by your board. And finally, the airport land use plan was adopted. Those 3 long-term planning documents are important so that the community planning, the project processing, the approval of building permits, and so forth can occur. Now that those long-term plans have been adopted, we're going to turn our attention to implementation. An example of implementation is that when you look at the current planning side, 301 projects, either planning projects or development projects, have been approved, which is the highest number that we've ever achieved. Turning now to economic development. Largely through the efforts of Mike Washam, the Economic Development Manager, and Eric Coyne, the Tourism Manager and Film Commissioner, the Economic Development Office has really taken off. And as you can see in Attachment B, there is a multi-page, single-space document that recounts accomplishment after accomplishment in terms of economic development activity for this county. In addition to the new businesses, the expanding businesses, and so forth, perhaps the most important accomplishment is the solar program. The solar program was put in the confines of the Economic Development Office because we knew that that would get done. And as a result of a couple of years of operation, the Economic Development Office was instrumental in bringing about the approval of projects which have conferred approximately $79 million in new building value to Tulare County. With regard to, let me say one other thing with regard to commercial development. Detailed in your packet are a number of commercial projects that have been approved with regard to Family Dollar, Dollar General, AutoZone, and so forth. And your board has requested that we come forward soon with regard to a review of commercial projects. We have cataloged those projects. We're going to divide them into 3 categories: straight commercial, ag-related business, and solar, and you will see the tremendous amount of commercial value during the past year that has been conferred on Tulare County. Hopefully we will do that in August to your board, or presented to your board. Grants and development. There's $16 million in grants that are being managed by that office. They are detailed in attachment D in your, in your packet. And the focus of grants and development, as I will explain later with regard to the reorg, is going to be a high level of attention and energy devoted to economic development and infrastructure projects. And in your packet, we have a 2-tier system of grants that we are going to go after this fiscal year in order to focus on economic development and infrastructure. In addition, in your packet, you have the $16 million breakdown of all the grants that we are working on, as well as the revenue that is generated as a result of working on those projects. Building and housing. This is a tremendous success story with regard to building and housing. First, almost 3,000 building permits were approved last year for approximately $126 million in building value. Moreover, and very importantly, with regard to code enforcement, which was a focus for the past year and a half, taking the workload or the caseload from almost 2,000 cases, that has now been reduced to under 300 cases. And that is largely through the efforts of the division manager and building official, Dennis Lehman, and his staff, who have been devoted to try to get, number one, that code enforcement workload down, but also give equal attention to the importance of having building permits issued in an expeditious manner. With regard to medical marijuana code compliance, your board has been informed from time to time as to the success with regard to that. I can say that last year, 366 marijuana cases were resolved with 90% abatement, and almost 40,000 medical marijuana plants are removed. Those results are reasonably good given the resources that we have and also the support that we have, and we appreciate that support. Finally, geographic information systems. Quite frankly, GIS is the unsung hero of the planning branch in that they work behind the scenes. GIS provides the data and the mapping that is critical to get the projects out. And it's through the support and the leadership of Mark Clark that we've gotten that kind of assistance to make sure that our project processing and long-range planning projects are completed on a timely basis. The other point I want to make is that GIS also provides a very important analytical function with regard to providing data in terms of groundwater quality, agricultural land, and disadvantaged communities. And you all know the significance of having comprehensive and up-to-date data with regard to those 3 areas. And I just wanted to acknowledge GIS and Mike Hickey in particular for providing that data at any time when we request it. Turning now to a proposed planning branch reorganization, which we are suggesting be approved by your board through the budget process. After looking over operations for the past year, looking over the results, and thinking about how we're trying to focus on performance and accountability, we are suggesting a 4-part approach, if you will, to a proposed reorganization that will improve performance in terms of productivity, timeliness, and most importantly, quality. The first one is the expansion of the Environmental Planning Division. As I indicated, there are 2 units subsumed within that division. The first one is environmental reporting, CEQA and NEPA, and the second unit is environmental permitting, such as 404 permitting, fish and game permitting, and so forth. The other division that we're going to propose is the creation of a resource planning unit, and the reason is twofold. As a result of the adoption of your general plan update, there are numerous environmental policies that need to be addressed. And thus, a certain level of expertise needs to be developed to make sure that either long-term planning projects or short-term planning projects are not held up. Examples would be agriculture, dairies, surface mining, air resources, water resources, biological resources, and so forth. So we're going to shift those areas from countywide planning to environmental planning where they belong, so the requisite degree of expertise can be given so that the work can keep moving. With regard to long-range planning and current planning, it is being suggested that we consolidate countywide planning and project review, primarily because of the general plan update. It is very important, it is critical that if the work is going to get out at the community plan level or at the project level, that the general plan update and all of its policies and implementation measures be carried out quickly but effectively. So what I'd like to try to do is have one division develop the requisite expertise in this area so that those policies can be carried out. And equally important, as you know, consistency findings need to be made with regard to zoning decisions, subdivision decisions, use permit decisions, and so forth. So by having that expertise in that area, we can ensure that the work doesn't get held up, or it's not criticized as a result of not being done well. The third suggested reorganization is a merger of grants and development into economic development. Informally, this has already been occurring to ensure that the grants process keeps moving and is taken to the next level with regard to focusing and emphasizing economic development projects as well as infrastructure projects. So by combining economic development, film and tourism, and grants, it is estimated and predicted that the work will get out faster and hopefully better. Finally, a transfer of GIS to Information and Communications Technology Department has been proposed, and I think it's already occurred in the sense that since GIS is a technology-based organization, it should go logically where the focal point of technology services are being provided. So that's been moved over. However, planning branch is retaining the services of one drafter position so that the data and the mapping is not held up and our projects can keep flowing. All right, next steps. Now that we've covered what we've done, we've covered what we're going to do, specifically what is the work that we propose for next fiscal year. First and foremost, as a result of your adoption of the general plan, there is a necessity to focus on community plan updating. As we may have mentioned from time to time, the branch is going to be focusing on 3 community plans this fiscal year, which are committed to try to complete. Number 1 is Goshen, number 2 is Pixley, and number 3 is Traver. The common denominator of those community plans is the Highway 99 corridor, and that has been selected for a number of reasons. First, from a planning perspective, a great deal of foundational planning work has already occurred over the years with regard to those plans. So we want to take advantage of that work and use the efficiency that may have been developed by a background of studies that have already been done. Secondly, there are grants associated with those planning areas or grants that we are in the process of applying for so that we can leverage the dollars from state agencies with regard to the dollars that have been committed in our budget in order to get these projects done. Secondly, the second reason is economic development. Highway 99 corridor is a well-traveled corridor. It is the center of gravity between the Bay Area and Southern California, and it makes good sense from an economic development perspective to try to develop that area where there could be either an attraction or an expansion of business opportunity. With regard to an environmental perspective, it makes sense also to focus on the 99 corridor because we're not going into the valley floor where there will be challenging issues with regard to whether industrial, commercial, and like development should occur or not. Therefore, by focusing on the Highway 99 corridor, we won't have RVLP issues, we won't have the ag conversion issue, as you might expect in other community planning areas. That's not to say that other community plans are not important, but in trying to determine or set up a priority schedule, we're going to focus on Highway 99. With regard to the housing element implementation, this is straightforward. We're committed to implement and complete the housing element, particularly action program number 9, which focuses on what? Disadvantaged communities. Agricultural policy implementation work plan. For the past few weeks or months, we've been working with the Agricultural Advisory Policy Committee to try to develop a work program as a result of the adoption of the general plan. It's very clear and very straightforward. Your general plan sets forth numerous implementation measures. We've started working on which implementation measures should be worked on and when, and we expect to complete that work program or plan soon and get it carried out. I will just highlight for you, based upon the general plan that was adopted, as stated in your implementation measures, the 2 implementation measures that are at the forefront of the work that we have to do are the ag buffer areas as well as ag mitigation. So we're doing a literature review right now to try to get the sum and substance of other areas, other counties that have worked on this to try to begin that process based upon a thoughtful basis. All right, the next one is the completion of the ACFP EIR and the Oco Ranch EIR. You have my commitment that these EIRs will be completed and circulated for public review by the next year. Fiscal year, I don't know, but next calendar year for sure. With regard to economic development and infrastructure, this is very important. As I mentioned to you, the primary focus with regard to grants and with regard to related activity is to try to leverage dollars to help us in these 2 critical areas. And with the leadership of Mike Washam and Eric Coyne, Lori Mercer, and others, there is going to be a great deal of focus with regard to this area. If I may just deviate for a moment and call out Mike Washam, who was just recovering from surgery, is in the background. He came down to hear this report, and as you can see, he's sporting the Ernest Hemingway look as well. So there's something going on in economic development. Thank you.
Sport fishing. We're going to bring back sport fishing.
The next one is the targeted zoning ordinance amendments. We are not going to undertake a comprehensive, lengthy, and laborious exercise with regard to amending the zoning ordinance. What we're going to do instead is target those areas that should be worked on in order to expedite permit processing, work on the non-conforming uses, as well as any agricultural matters that need to be addressed. So it will be targeted. In addition, we will be completing an SB 244 implementation work plan. What is this? This basically deals with how to address the adoption of future housing elements within the context of disadvantaged communities and public facilities. And one of the features of SB 244 is a possible consideration of a public facilities element. So some counties, San Diego County being one of them, has adopted an extensive public facilities element, and we're going to take a look at that to see if that would be appropriate for our work here in Tulare County. And finally, there will be continued efforts with regard to increase the output with regard to code enforcement cases and medical marijuana cases. All right, to give you a visual glimpse in terms of what our proposed reorganization will look like, on the top part of the slide, this is our existing organizational structure, which is composed of 8 structural areas. We're proposing to reduce it down to 5, which is indicative of a leaner organization. Therefore, it is our belief that we can bring about more efficient results when using the project management system. Finally, and very importantly, I would like to make a number of acknowledgments because whatever success we have achieved during the last fiscal year in the planning branch has largely been through the help, support, assistance, and direction of a number of entities. First and foremost, the Board of Supervisors, by giving us the latitude and the discretion to really take off and to be a performance-based operation. Secondly, through the administrative and financial support of the CAO, we could not have made things happen unless we had that kind of support. Moreover, County Council, the legal advice that we've been given has been critical to make sure that we stay on the right track and we can deliver our results without any pushback in terms of there being legal issues or legal problems. I'd also like to thank the RMA Director, Jake Raper, the Assistant Directors, Roger Hunt, and Britt Fussell for their collaboration and cooperation. And I really have to thank Roger Hunt, especially during this last fiscal year, because during the budget matters that we've been handling, his advice and his input have been absolutely outstanding in making sure that we met our target, which we did. Finally, I really want to thank RMA staff from the administration branch, the public works branch, and the planning staff, because they really gave it their all this year in order to try to step up and perform in a way that they haven't performed before. And I really want to acknowledge and thank the work that they did. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from board members? Supervisor Cox.
As I look at attachment A, Mike, something just jumped out at me here. The Project Review Committee,
Yes, sir.
which is a new process we're doing, and it replaced the site plan process. I see the prior year we had one preliminary site plan process, and this year Project Review Committee saw 36 projects. I would hope that that's partly because we changed the way we do business. We made it easier for people to come in and talk about projects. We cut the price, we slashed the price of what it costs to do that. And I'd like to have in the future just a review of that process, even informally, because I wasn't happy about what we charged to do that. And now looking at that, that ranks in the top 5 of what we're doing in that planning division. And for me, it's one of the least intense processes that we do. So I'd like to take a look at the cost of that. It's obvious that we open the doors, like Supervisor Ishida said many years ago, and said the county's open for business. So I'm glad to see that, and I think that's a huge success story that I thought needed to be highlighted here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Cox. If I may just briefly respond to that. I could not agree more with your comments. As a result of your board having the foresight, try to ensure that the development community
Pull your mic around.
have to spend.
Pull your
I'm
mic
sorry.
around.
Sorry. Want me to repeat everything?
Can you
I'm getting out
redo
of
the
wind here,
presentation, Mike?
I know Mr. Ishida can hear me.
Mr. Washington nodded off again. I needed you to speak into the mic again.
Thank you, sir. You've raised a very good point, because when I read the preamble of the ordinance and related materials, I was very excited, because what you were looking for is try to get the development community the information as early as possible in terms of what the requirements would be, so it would not be a surprise late in the game. They've already got their financing plan in place, and conditions of approval give rise to extra cost. What we've done to try to enhance, happy to give the report more formally, but what we've tried to do to enhance that opportunity that you presented to us is that we have environmental and economic development also sitting at the table at the beginning of the project, so that economic development and CEQA are not afterthoughts, because, quite frankly, that's the name of the game. CEQA determines how fast you get through the process, what the mitigation measures are. That translates into conditions of approval, which translates into what? Financing costs. So by having CEQA at the table with the chief environmental planner, the mitigation measures are discussed, explored, so they can go back and regroup if they need to and figure out, well, do I want to redesign the project, come in with a different concept if this is what I'm looking at in terms of mitigation and so forth. Economic development, to try to ensure that a project that has economic development potential is not squashed at the front end, that we have that influence there to make sure that there is heightened attention given that we want to move this project through because it's of tremendous value, not only economic value, but social value, if you will, to the county. So that's what we've done to make sure that we have other important stakeholders at the table so that the project is given due attention. So that's why we have focused in that area to make sure those projects, number one, are not economic killers to the applicant, but also they're good in terms of CEQA and economic development.
Supervisor Ishida, do you still have comment or question?
I have a couple. Community plan update. It's been over 10 years. Three Rivers still hasn't finished their community plan, and it was started over 10 years ago. So I'd like to see that completed. They've been waiting a long time to get that done. under zoning, targeting zoning, we have a lot of small parcels, not small areas that are absolutely miszoned. We have AE5 or AE10s, and we have 12,000 square foot lots in that area. So we need to go back through and look at these places that are miszoned, because when they come to us for zone change, we charge a lot of money for that zone change, when in fact the land's actually not zoned properly. The other thing I like to point out, and it was a meeting that I had with you and Eric and a client, that when the director came to us and asked to hire senior planners instead of one planners, two planners, it's really worked out well. And it's really worked out well for the public, because we can get the work done quicker because of the knowledge these people have. And I was very impressed with the presentation I saw you make last week. And my hat's off, and Jake, it was a good idea of getting senior planners instead of planner ones. And that's all I have.
If I may respond, Mr. Chairman, just quickly.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Very quickly.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Mr. Shida, with regard to the Three Rivers plan, we agree with you. But as you can well understand, what we're trying to do right now is get the best bang for our buck. However, what we can do for you, we can do a SWOT analysis this year. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which is the foundation leading to really what do the folks want out there. So I can commit to you that we will begin a SWOT analysis to ensure that we can really focus our energy the next fiscal year when we maybe.
I think we've done that already.
And let me just make a real quick comment, Mike, about the community planning. You can put Three Rivers off as long as you want, because I know that there's Early Mart, there's Tipton, in addition to Pixley. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that. But I know Gene had a comment.
I had a couple of comments. First of all, great job, Mike and Jake. I love people coming in front of the board who are excited and as intense as you are. It's time to take the ball and run with it. The center of gravity comment about 99, let's do it, And the fourth quarter thinking comment in your second paragraph is outstanding. Let's be strategic, let's be smart, and let's take no prisoners. And I love the attitude you bring here. We need more people like you with your attitude.
Gene, are you inspired by the bow
tie?
I'm excited. Inspired by the bow tie. That's kind of what I was feeling.
Being an ex-football player, fourth quarter thinking works for me.
Answer the question, are you inspired by the bow tie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that too. I forgot. That's on my list.
Okay. All right.
But my really quick comments, the new expanded unit in environmental, there's been some pushback in the private sector relative to that. I know we're trying to find a balance in that regard, and I fully expect you to do a great job. The highlights that, I'm looking at page 2 on your agenda, the general plan, the housing element, the airport land use plans, those are huge accomplishments. Code enforcement has probably never been as strong as it is now. The building permit area, fantastic. Economic development, solar, tourism, film, those are all really good success stories. The concentration on 99 with that grant that we received, the economic development grant, makes sense. Grants moving in economic development, that's a work in progress. We're still trying to find our way, with the dissolution of RDAs. In this coming year's budget, we talked about putting some of the one-time redevelopment monies aside into a trust fund. That's about $2.3 million for future economic development or grant opportunity matches, and that's what we're going to propose to do. The one thing that wasn't mentioned was the dilapidated housing abatement program that Mr. Lehman's been working on. We've been doing in accordance with the chairman's comments, his state of the county. I think we've done a lot of work in that regard too. And we're planning on doing more. Marijuana abatement, a 90% abatement record with our marijuana guy, Mr. Grove. I love that guy's name. And last but not least, just to comment, we're also at the same time improving technology tremendously, which, by the way, I totally back your recommendation to move GIS into IT. Makes a lot of sense. But in that regard, the implementation in Palms and the enterprise GIS system is going to transform the department even more so than what you guys are doing, well, in conjunction with what you're doing now. So anyway, I'm excited that you brought this forward. I feel like I want to hit someone real fast, in football. But anyway, I appreciate your efforts, Mike.
All right, any other comments? Go ahead, Supervisor.
Just want to say I'm
Worthy.
very fully supportive of the reorganization. Appreciate all of the efforts that are being done. We see every day the impact of what you're accomplishing there. I guess I feel especially fortunate to see so many things happening up in my particular district, but I think the whole county is benefiting. I just want to make one quick comment on the Project Review Committee. I met with an individual who was looking at doing oil drilling in Tulare County, not the fracking kind, but traditional type of oil drilling. And he pointed specifically to this Project Review Committee because he operates throughout California, and he so appreciated that process and the way of how it was done that he's taken it to other counties that you need to do this too, because he felt that it brought so much value to. When you look at some kind of a project like that, you want to know up front, do I have a chance here, or am I just spinning my wheels? And so that whole process allows people to have a good feel for whether they'll be able to go forward, whether they need to go back and retool or reconsider, and he was very, very appreciative of that. And I know it's anecdotal, but I wanted to pass it on to you.
Mike, I know you had a comment as well.
Yeah, I just want to say that really appreciate you guys and what you do and the streamlining. And the real winners are the people that live here in Tulare County, because when they come forward and have an issue or have a project, they want that project as soon as they can get it. So hats off to you guys. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Gene had another comment, and then I have one comment.
Right above the Ivanhoe apartment comment, which was a great project, and recently the groundbreaking was done for that. Ivanhoe is blessed to have.
Not groundbreaking, ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting, excuse me. But the line below that, the preparation of countywide and supervisor district project list. We're trying to be strategic in the roads that we improve and the sidewalks or asphalt paths that we put into our communities. So we're now, developing the list that we're going to need for future TCAG opportunities and other grant-related opportunities. That's it for me.
Chairman, if I may briefly respond to what the CAO just said. This week, I'm going to get a first cut, Mr. Rousseau, members of the board, with regard to that project list. We're going to vet it to you within RMA and then bring it to the board as rapidly as possible. The final thing, and one thing I neglected to say to really support the concept that we are open for business and that we really take heart with regard to that concept. With regard to the 2012 Ag report, if you open the cover, economic development, which says what we mean and mean what we say, that economic development is a primary objective of this county, your board, and the RMA. Thank you.
All right, and then I just wanted to make a couple of real quick comments. Speaking of presentations forthcoming, I would like to just see a little update about the nuisance property abatement program that we had talked about earlier in the year, kind of see where that is going and where we can take advantage of the opportunities that exist there to help clean up our county. And I also wanted to thank all the employees in RMA. I know that the managers have really helped lay out a great vision, but it's the dedicated employees within RMA that help to implement that vision and work really hard each and every day, and they've really improved in their customer service, and I just get a good sense in RMA, and I hope that we will continue to strive towards additional improvement in customer service, and just really to make sure that we provide a great place for people to come and work and where they get excited about their jobs and grow facial hair because of the excitement. Mr. Washam in the back there. Just really compliments in general to what you're doing. I think you've got a strong motivation to move forward, and I really appreciate you're making economic development the focus of really what everything that is being done within Resource Management Agency is about. I think that's fantastic. Our county needs that. I think our unemployment figures will show that prioritization later on down the road, but it's the initial investment up front and taking sites like Harmon Field and Pixley or different sites throughout the county that really are, or even the Sequoia Field Airport, for example, taking sites that are often overlooked within our county and seeing what we can do to make them productive and be contributors within our county and not just consumers of resources. And so I really appreciate that philosophy and encourage you to continue with that moving forward. Any other comments, board? All right. Thank you very much. Any public comments, real quick? Sure, sir. Go ahead.
Everything again?
Yeah, please state your name and
Florentino
address.
Hernandez Jr., Visalia, California, that's Columbus. I'd like to commend y'all for abating the marijuana problem in our counties, in the national forest. You know, good for y'all there. And on the petroleum, we need to tax the petroleum industry. We're getting more higher prices on the gas. We need to tax them, state. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will conclude item number 24, and that does wrap up our regularly scheduled board meeting and our open session. Council, do we have need for closed session?
Yes, we do. Your board has already adjourned to consider item D. Items A through C are off the board's agenda. Items E through I.
Board, before you go, we do have to vote to accept the presentation we just received. Oh, guys.
Want me to
wait.
finish?
What's that?
Do you want me to finish?
Yeah, please do. But
E through I remain on your board's closed session agenda. I do anticipate announcement.
okay.
Oh, and there's an urgency item. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
Alan, get Mike and Steve. Okay.
I completely.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Council.
I have an urgency item that I did want your board to take up, but you need to vote on your existing.
No, they don't need to vote.
No, we don't have to
No?
vote on this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a vote on the urgency item.
I'm asking your board to place on the board's closed session agenda as an urgency item the case of Dronenberg versus Brown, California Supreme Court number S212172. This is a case that was filed on Friday with the California Supreme Court by the San Diego County Clerk. He has not sued Tulare County or any other county or county clerk directly, but he has asked that his case be consolidated and heard with the Hollingsworth case, which does name your board and your clerk. This matter is moving very swiftly. This was filed on Friday. The respondents in this case were directed to file a response by yesterday at 9 a.m. We have no idea whether there are going to be further requests for example, input on the request to join. And so I felt it was important that we bring this to your board's attention and get direction immediately rather than waiting.
Motion to add as an urgency item to our
Second.
session.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Cox, a second by Supervisor. Was that Supervisor Ennis?
Yes.
It was you. Okay, all right. We have a motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Ennis. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
This item would be on your board's closed session agenda as conference with legal counsel under Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D2, potential litigation, one case.
All right. Thank you very much.
This is Gene Rousseau, County Administrative Officer, reporting at a closed session on item H to consider the public employee employment for the position of interim solid waste director. On a motion by Supervisor Yoshida, seconded by Supervisor Cox, the board voted unanimously to appoint Denise Akins as the interim solid waste director.
Announcement of closed session today, Tuesday, July 23rd, by Kathleen Bales-Lang, County Council, in the matter of item E on the board's closed session agenda, Hollingsworth versus O'Connell, and as amended during the board meeting and added, Dronenberg versus Brown. The board voted to defend and ratify response in both those actions as needed. That is on motion of Supervisor Worthley, seconded by Supervisor Ennis, on a unanimous vote. There are no other announcements. Okay. They're in the process of changing all these forms, but